From the headquarters of Telesur English in Quito, Ecuador, I'm Carla Gonzalez, and this is From the South. We start in Venezuela, where President Nicolas Maduro is campaigning in the northern state of Aragua. He's asking Venezuelans for their vote to overcome the economic blockade and support the Bolivarian revolution. The rest of the candidates are also campaigning. The main opposition leader, Henri Falconi, visited the western city of Trujillo, where he met farmers and traders and insisted on the need for dollarizing the Venezuelan economy. Falcon said he wants to open what he calls international channels to defeat the crisis. In the meantime, international observers who will oversee the election process have arrived in Caracas. Earlier in Aragua, President Maduro criticized Falcon's proposals. He asked his supporters to defend Venezuela from Falcon and the United States.
Henri Falconi said he will win the presidential elections, and when he becomes president, he will give the White Report to the U.S. government. He will open the White Report to allow the U.S. to come and dominate us. He offers manipulation and dishonesty, so we need to be aware, because the opposition proposals are based on handing our country to the U.S. empire and the European oligarchs. So I ask you, do Venezuelan people will defend it from this? I tell Henri Falconi to be prepared, because on May 20th, we are going to show him who defends this country with 10 million votes.
The country's National Electoral Council will deploy the army to more than 14,000 polling stations on election day to ensure that people can cast their votes safely. Authorities will carry out 14 different audits to the electoral system, especially on the voting machines and technological infrastructure.
We are working on the last details to guarantee that the armed forces are deployed around the country so that all voters can feel safe on election day, knowing we are working to protect the polling stations and also fulfilling the law regarding the electoral process.
The Venezuelan Vice President, Tarek El Aissami, has reviewed Operation Paper Hands, a program to combat the currency crisis. He said the government will be opening up currency exchanges as well as breaking up criminal networks that threaten the stability of the country.
We are facing a large criminal organization, which includes local and international groups, with only two main objectives. First, to take money away from Venezuelan people by taking a currency to the Colombian border. Second of all, speculation of the currency change rate to boycott and destabilize the economic and financial system of Venezuela. Therefore, Operation Paper Hands has been executed in order to capture the people involved, freeze banking accounts, and investigate several companies that are part of this criminal organization.
We move to Colombia, where candidate Vivian Morales has withdrawn from the presidential race. On Twitter, the former Attorney General and candidate for the center right-wing party Somos said her campaign had been heavily attacked and marginalized by the media. Morales joins former candidate Piedad Córdoba, who also withdrew and said she was discriminated by media. There are now only male candidates running for the presidency.
Fellow
Colombian people, I have to announce my withdrawal from the presidential rally. It is hard to find a presidential campaign as independent and transparent as ours. There has been attacked so cruelly and has suffered so many traps. When I resigned from my position as a senator to be the candidate of the Somos party, the Liberal Party tried to prevent my candidature. First, the Colombia's media outlets did not invite me to many debates, in a decision made to make me invisible to the voters. Then the Electoral Council put obstacles on our funding, so we could not support and develop basic activities for our campaign. We believe in the battle for democracy, but this battle should be fair for all candidates.
Still in Colombia, a community leader from the Arauca department, Carmen Moreno, has been found dead 5 days after being kidnapped from her farm. The body of the community leader was found in an advanced state of decomposition close to where she was kidnapped. Social movements and human rights defenders are asking the OAS to respond for her murder.
We are asking that the OAS work very quickly to avoid any further violence, like what happened with the militants of the Patriotic Union in the 80s, 90s, and 2000s. It is necessary that the country knows that the community leaders are at risk.
Staying in Colombia, the leader of the Oliver Sinisterra Front, Walter Patricio Arizala, also known as Huacho, has asked for a humanitarian corridor on the Colombia-Ecuador border in order to return the bodies of the 3 murdered journalists and a kidnapped couple. Huacho wants the Colombian army to stop military operations in the area. He sent a letter with the proposal to Ecuadorian President Lenín Moreno. However, the authenticity of the document has yet to be confirmed by Ecuadorian authorities. And Ecuadorian military forces have imposed tight security in the areas near the Colombian border, following recent murders, kidnappings, and bomb attacks. The violence and the military response have disrupted daily life in the area and caused some residents to leave their homes. Our correspondent in Ecuador, Denise Herrera, reports.
Several residents from the area of San Lorenzo on the northern border with Colombia have left their homes because of terrorists and criminal groups. Aranceli, who is one of the 180 displaced people on the border, has been moved to a makeshift shelter together with her family.
We all fled our homes. I took my children and a suitcase and went to look for a refuge in a church. They are taking care of us, but we had to abandon our home. We are not guilty of what is happening here. Our lives should not be ruined because of this.
At the Church of San Lorenzo, the displaced people from the towns of Mataje and El Pan, bordered with Colombia, were lodged. There are currently 30 people who remain there, and other people have decided to return to their homes. The entrance to the shelter is restricted, and the fear of the inhabitants to speak is evident in connection with the insecurity and the terrorist attacks in the last week.
We have heard rumors that if we don't leave, we will face consequences. We are afraid, and this is why we are evacuating the community.
The way to Mataje that leads to the border with Colombia is military side. There are 3 military and police control checkpoints along 16 kilometers from San Lorenzo. Access is only possible for the inhabitants of the area under a strict security control. The atmosphere that is present there is similar to a war. Military convoys are continually relieved at the borderline according to the state of exception announced by the government.
If the government says the region is in a state of emergency, then we, the citizens, need to be consulted first, so that we can find a solution. We cannot live like this anymore, with a government that is not trying to find a solution and with people who can do anything near the border.
The town square in San Lorenzo have become places where citizens have been gathering to demand measures to return home. The walls in the city also show the people possibly responsible for this conflict. However, violence and insecurity now is part of the daily life in San Lorenzo. Denise Herrera, Telesur, Quito, Ecuador.
The United States Army is in Argentina for a 2-day military exercise. Argentinian opposition say they're in the country without proper approval. Our correspondent in Argentina, Edgardo Esteban, has more details.
The United States Armed Forces have arrived in Argentina to begin joint military exercises without congressional approval. This has generated questions from the opposition. They are asking for explanation from the Ministry of Defense. The opposition is asking for detailed information regarding the motives and goals of this military cooperation. The Ministry of Defense indicates that it is a part of an exercise that was organized in the framework of the Proliferation Security Initiative that aims to curtail the global trafficking of weapons of mass destruction. The Guarani Aquifer is located in this area. This is one of the biggest reserves of fresh water in the world and has always been seen by the U.S. as a conflict zone. There's a possibility of military bases being installed in the country. One is on the border with Bolivia, where there is a big reserve of lithium. The other one is in Patagonia, where there is a reserve of fresh water and hydrocarbon. There is a lot of concern, and in the next days, the National Congress will ask the Ministry of Defense to inform about these military operations between the United States and Argentina.
That was Edgardo Esteban from Buenos Aires. Sonia Winner, an academic and researcher from the National Scientific and Technical Research Council, spoke about the risks and the consequences of the U.S. military exercise in Argentina.
I'm very concerned about the U.S. military exercises in the Argentine coastline for many reasons. First of all, it violates the Argentinian sovereignty, mainly because it hasn't been approved by the Congress, which is in charge of authorizing foreign military exercises. Second, these operations affect the ecosystem and biodiversity of our coastline. Finally, it's very dangerous for our people, since the U.S. Central Intelligence members are experts on criminalizing social protests and intervening militarily in socialist countries in the region.
And we showed you how May Day demonstrations in Puerto Rico turned violent on Tuesday as people protested austerity measures. We spoke to environmental scientist Carlos Alicea Negron of the pro-independence movement, Ñin Negron. He told us why people were out there in the first place.
Basically, they are creating and taking measures and policy decisions that are eliminating the pension funds of Puerto Ricans, are eliminating the labor rights that have been gained through tears and blood for many historical years in Puerto Rico. They are closing schools. And let me point out, this is one of the more active and militant community groups that are opposing the closing of schools, because they want to eliminate the public school system and privatize it. And they are basically, and we're opposing as well, all the policies that are privatizing all the national heritage that we have in Puerto Rico, like land, the water, the natural resources, the electric authority that is public now, but they want to privatize it.
We'll take a short break now, but join us after this look at what our multimedia colleagues are reporting.
Heard that the caravan coming up from Honduras is broken up, and Mexico did that. And they did it because, frankly, I said, you really have to do it. We're going to have a relationship on NAFTA. We're going to have to include security in NAFTA. NAFTA's been a terrible deal for the United States. We're renegotiating the deal right now. They have to do it. Otherwise, I'm not going to do the NAFTA deal. NAFTA's been fantastic for Mexico, bad for us. This is a caravan of a lot of people coming in this case from Honduras. If it reaches our border, our laws are so weak and so pathetic, you would not understand it.
Adiós, mi amor. Adiós. Dale un beso, mamá.
No somos delincuentes, somos madres, somos padres y somos niños que son el nuevo futuro, la nueva oportunidad de vida, y les suplicamos que nos escuchen.
I think better than being president, I was maybe good at building.
Welcome back. Former Brazilian President Dilma Rousseff said Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva will win October's presidential election, even from jail. Lula is currently detained at the federal police headquarters in Curitiba over corruption charges. Speaking in Argentina, Rousseff also said she has many concerns about his detention, including his access to food and water. Nobel Peace Laureate Adolfo Pérez Esquivel has also defended Lula's innocence and described him as a political prisoner.
Free or even in prison, Lula will be elected president of the Federative Republic of Brazil.
Lula is a political prisoner. They are accusing him of a crime he never committed.
And Lula sent a message of hope to the Brazilian people, encouraging them to keep fighting for social justice against aggressive neoliberal policies.
We know a better Brazil is possible. We have already lived in that Brazil in the past. That's why the hope that we are regaining this 1st of May is not just a wish. It's something that we are looking for in our democratic fight every day. It gives us the strength to overcome the sad days we are living in now and to build a future of peace and prosperity. 3 cheers for the workers, 3 cheers for Brazil, and 3 cheers for the Brazilian people.
Also in Brazil, there is a new corruption case involving Michel Temer's cabinet. His agriculture minister, Blairo Maggi, has been accused of money laundering. According to the Brazilian prosecutor's office, the minister took part in buying and selling seats in the Court of Audit in the western state of Mato Grosso, where he was governor in 2009. Maggi has denied any wrongdoing. Construction workers in Panama are on strike against business owners who have not increased wages despite making huge profits.
During a press conference and after 15 days of strike, members of the Construction Workers Union gave the following statement regarding the ongoing negotiations.
There is nothing new. The business sector maintains their 5% per hour wage increase proposal, and that, for us, is totally unacceptable.
Workers continue to ask for an increase in wages of 10.9% annually over the next 4 years, but the counter offer only increases wages by 5 cents per hour, depending on the worker's position. Workers consider that proposal is completely unfair since over the past 4 years, the industry got $36 billion in income, out of which 30 billion was net income.
Their proposal is not satisfactory for us. It's not fair compared to the $36 billion produced in the last 4 years.
On April 30th, during a general union assembly, construction workers decided not to give up until business owners provide them with a fair proposal. They say that those who control the funds are simply waiting for workers to give up.
They want to weaken and divide us. Panama's construction chamber is hurting the country, the workers and the industry. I think they are wrong.
95% of the building projects in the country have stopped, including public works. Resistance from the business sector clearly shows that this conflict is far from its end.
In Antigua and Barbuda, the Barbuda People's Movement has won a council seat, following a vacancy after political leader Trevor Walker became an MP. Kelsey Beeser will now sit on the Barbuda Local Government Council. Meanwhile, the Barbuda Land Act continues to be debated in Parliament. Prime Minister Gaston Brown has accused the BPM of holding Barbuda back and spreading misinformation.
It is obvious that Trevor Walker and his BPM colleagues have managed to use misinformation, disinformation, to dumb down the Barbudan people, literally, and to have them to vote against their own interests, against their own advancement. So it is unfortunate. I believe that the relationship between the government and the BPM will be an acrimonious one, not because of any intent of my government to have an acrimonious relationship with them, but the BPM is hell-bent that the land should not be utilized for the economic development of the island and the Barbudan people.
But political leader of the Barbuda People's Movement, Trevor Walker, says he's doing his best for the Barbudan people.
of dialogue with the government where required and make sure that we get everything that's in the best interest of Barbuda where that is concerned. So we're very happy, and the people have spoken, which means that they do have the confidence in us to do what is required to take Barbuda forward.
Barbados Prime Minister Frendwell Stewart says he's optimistic ahead of the election. He told reporters he's looking forward to the campaign, which officially begins on Sunday. Stewart says he has steered the country through very tough economic times.
Done this country proud over the last 10 years. We have had to govern Barbados in the most challenging decade the Western world has seen since the Great Depression, and we have managed to not only keep Barbados stable, but to ensure that those basic amenities to which Barbadians have become accustomed were made available to them on an uninterrupted basis.
16 Guyanese fishermen are missing after pirates attacked 4 fishing boats in the waters off Suriname last week. 4 fishermen managed to escape and give an account of the horrific attack. The pirates tied the fishermen's hands and legs and assaulted them with machetes, then forced them to jump overboard. The authorities continue to search for the victims. We'll take a short break now, but join us after this look at what a multimedia team is reporting. Welcome back. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Guterres has urged U.S. President Donald Trump not to scrap the Iran nuclear deal, a week before Trump must make a decision on this accord. Guterres said abandoning the deal will lead to more instability in the Middle East. He said there is no plan B to replace the diplomatic agreement achieved through the deal signed in 2015. Guterres expressed his concerns as sources from the White House say Trump has decided to scrap the deal. In the first Lebanese parliamentary election in almost a decade, a record number of women are standing. The election will be held on Sunday. Out of 1,000 candidates, 11% are women. Female candidates are seeking parliamentary seats in the hope that it will improve the overall situation of women in the country and help in fighting discrimination. In the current parliament, there are only 4 women out of a total of 128 seats. British marketing company Cambridge Analytica, which unleashed a scandal over the use of personal data on Facebook, announced it has ceased all operations. According to a statement on their website, its parent company, SCL, has started an insolvency process in the UK. Cambridge Analytica was accused of using personal data from 19 million Facebook users without their consent. Meanwhile, Facebook says it is launching a new dating app. CEO Mark Zuckerberg says the matchmaking service has been designed with privacy and safety in mind.
It was a major breach of trust.
A fierce storm killed 100 people in India. Here's more on that and other stories that are making headlines around the world.
A strong dust storm and thunder shower has killed at least 100 people and injured scores in India. The overnight mayhem swept through North India with winds up to 130 kilometers per hour, uprooting trees, destroying buildings, disrupting electricity and killing livestock. Most of those were killed in the city of Agra by falling trees and walls. A relief and rescue operation is underway. Defense Minister of Madagascar has appealed to political parties fighting with each other to reach an agreement as anti-government protests continue for a 12th day. The opposition is demanding the resignation of President Henri Mampianina and are accusing him of making discriminatory electoral rules favoring himself. The elections are due by the end of the year.
We appeal to all citizens without exception to stop being manipulated by politicians. There has been enough bloodshed and loss of human life. Do not make selfishness and greed reasons to sacrifice your compatriots.
Burundi has launched a campaign for a referendum on constitutional change that could enable President Pierre Nkurunziza to stay in power till 2034. People will vote on May 17th on removing a two-term limit for presidents. The proposed change will let Nkurunziza to seek 2 more terms of 7 years each. 54-year-old Nkurunziza has already been in power since 2005. The vote is being held under tight scrutiny. Parties which call on voters to boycott rather than cast a yes or no ballot risk up to 3 years in jail.
And with that roundup, we come to the end of this news brief. But there's so many other stories, you can find them on our website at telesurtv.net/English. And you can also join us on social media, on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For Telesur English, I'm Carla Gonzalez. Thank you for watching.